I don't know if you've noticed, but oil is in the news a lot these days. The U.S. has imposed sanctions on Russian oil, and all that does is raise the prices at the pump for Americans. It doesn't end the Ukraine proxy war. The U.S. is threatening to invade Venezuela under the pretext of drug cartels, but we know the DEA is a drug cartel. And we also know that the U.S. really just wants to seize Venezuela's oil. And now in Mali, the Al-Qaeda terrorists / Ukraine and NATO-backed terrorists, Al-Qaeda's on our side in Syria, remember, are imposing a fuel blockade on Mali. They're not able to win on the battlefield, so they're resorting to tactics of economic warfare. Now, the U.S. response to this is to issue a decree for Americans to leave Mali immediately because of fuel shortages and instability across the country. What is really going on? Well, we know that oil monopolies make foreign policy, BP, Shell, Chevron, and the lower level capitalists, the fracking cowboys, just want a piece of the pie. So there's a lot of confusion going on. But what we also know is that recently the U.S. had imposed a $15,000 bond on many African countries to obtain passports for the United States under the pretext that Africans come but they don't go back. So Mali retaliated under international law, applying reciprocity, and they imposed a $15,000 bond on Americans to come and visit Mali. So a couple days ago, the U.S. quietly dropped those bonds. Were they trying to make friends with Mali, or is there something more sinister going on? Well, we can find out what's really going on in Mali by listening to some actual on-the-ground reports. So I'll be back.
Ici, à Bamako, la coopération russo-malienne franchit une étape stratégique. Dans un contexte marqué par la pénurie de carburant, la Russie annonce la livraison mensuelle de 160 000 à 200 000 tonnes de produits pétroliers au Mali. Cette aide, il faut le rappeler, s'inscrit dans la volonté du gouvernement malien de renforcer sa souveraineté énergétique et de consolider ses relations avec Moscou. Mais au-delà de l'urgence énergétique, cette coopération illustre la montée en puissance d'une alliance économique fondée sur la confiance et la complémentarité. Selon plusieurs observateurs, il s'agit d'un tournant majeur dans la diplomatie malienne, porteur de nouvelles perspectives de stabilité et de développement.
Ce partenariat est très sincère et solide. C'est comme si la Russie venait à lever l'épine au pied du Mali, puisque nous souffrons énormément en ce qui concerne cette pénurie de carburant, voire même d'essence, puisque nous savons que c'est le poumon même de l'économie malienne. Nous l'avons senti lorsque ces terroristes ont tenté de bloquer les sources d'approvisionnement concernant les grandes agglomérations. Nous avons senti cela à travers un peu le pays, et si la Russie arrive à nous livrer cela et que les autorités de transition arrivent aussi à sécuriser et à mener ces produits à bon port, je pense que ça sera un rouvre de soulagement pour le peuple malien.
The purpose of our visit here is to find mechanisms, deliver petroleum products, fertilizers and wheat as part of our cooperation between our two countries. Mali is a strategic country, and so the development of relation between our two countries is a focus point. It's a key point for our country. So we are working with the Ministry of Finance and since 2000 on these issues. We expect approximately between 160 and 200,000 tons monthly.
Petroleum products.
Petroleum products. First of all, it's Africa, especially Mali. So it is a friendly country. So for us, it is a country with which we are developing a strategic partnership. It is an allied country of Russia. So that's why we are helping our friend in the context of developing our relations. But also, it is also due to the past of our country, so of the Soviet Union. So we are obliged to commit to come to help.
Mali is stepping its foot down, revoking more than 90 mining exploration permits, including those held by international companies after officials said operators failed to meet new legal requirements. According to a decree signed by Mines Minister Amadou Keita, all rights under the cancelled permits are now released and open for reallocation. The permits issued between 2015 and 2022 covered exploration for gold, uranium, rare earths and other metals. The move follows similar crackdowns in other African nations tightening control over natural resources. Mali, one of Africa's top gold producers, has faced declining foreign investment amid growing insecurity. The military-led government has also deepened ties with Russia, signing new energy and mining deals.
The director, Minister Diaro, has called a meeting, and this is what he has to discuss with those who are working together to solve this problem.
Improving the country's supply of petroleum products. Minister Moussa Alassane Diallo, in consultation with the private sector at the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Mali. In response to the current shortage, the government is already hard at work to provide concrete solutions along three main lines. Ensure the continuity of the country's supply of petroleum products. Ensure and manage coordination with all importers as well as distributors in order to guarantee price control and the quality of product supply throughout the entire national territory. Another factor that is worsening this crisis is speculation on prices and the withholding of petroleum products as observed on the ground by the department's technical services. It is in this context that the minister decided to hold an informational meeting to discuss the state of the country's supply of petroleum products and transit. But above all, to call on the leaders of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Mali to raise awareness among hydrocarbon operators. By putting this crisis into context, the minister first wanted to reassure economic operators of the highest authority's commitment to providing appropriate responses to this situation.
This crisis is taking place in an extremely difficult context for our country, marked by multiple attacks from armed terrorist groups, particularly attacks on industrial units. I think it is important to fully understand the issues and challenges the country is facing. Today, the armed terrorist groups are firmly convinced after the September 22, 2025 parade that they will never defeat the army. So they have changed their strategy to target our production tools. This is what we call economic warfare. By attacking our production units, we have had 3 factory attacks in Bafula Bay, 2 attacks in Sokala and Nansukala, and the attacks are ongoing. So by targeting our production units 100%, the terrorist group is trying to reduce our production capacity. If our production capacity is reduced, this will result in shortages, right, of essential goods on the market, but also and above all, it will create inflation, what we call the high cost of living, all of which will impact the population. That's why not only are industrial units being attacked, but also, and especially, rolling stock and transportation.
He then denounced speculation on petroleum products by certain economic operators.
But this meeting about the equipment is a meeting for information and awareness. But it's also a meeting about responsibility. Despite this crisis, despite the commitment of our defense and security forces, despite the government's mobilization, with the Prime Minister himself, the head of government, on the front lines managing this petroleum products crisis, we unfortunately see in our country that Malians are being hit to the core in their very flesh, and that some economic operators are using this very situation to engage in speculation. And this speculation takes 3 forms. The first form concerns all issues related to stockpiling. All of these actions go against the rules of commerce. It is a violation of commercial regulations. Because the more stockpiling there is, the more scarcity is created. And the more scarcity is created, the more prices soar. And I must say, as I mentioned earlier, that today we are in a system where hydrocarbon prices are regulated in our country. Secondly, there are also unjustified price increases. All of these things go against the regulations and the price controls set by the government. And the third thing we see from economic operators is the whole issue of disinformation about the country's supply in order to create panic in our country so that everyone rushes to the gas stations. And today, on average, whether it's people with cars or those with motorcycles, people are now trying to stock up for a week, for 2 weeks. All these things contribute to worsening the crisis. And that is the responsibility of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Mali. But the oil sector is a completely liberalized sector. That's why today I am calling for a sense of responsibility, a spirit of solidarity, a sense of commitment and economic patriotism from our economic operators. We have experienced much more serious crises. We went through the embargo. We saw the role the private sector played in managing that.
At the end of the discussions, the President of the Chamber of Commerce and the ministers of Mali assured their commitment to address this crisis.
And I am indeed very pleased to be here. The esteemed Minister of the Economy, with the clear intention to unjustly attack the innocent citizens. I don't want hardship to still be here, because since there was already an established and fully operational importer in place, and the administrative office facilities were already readily available and properly set up, there was absolutely no compelling necessity or requirement to undertake such an action. It unequivocally needs to be situated there. It absolutely needs to be permanently located there.
And the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, through the DGCC, has deployed agents in the field to monitor warehouses, control delivery flows, and assess stock levels to ensure a gradual return to normal.
So as you can see, Mali is not panicking. They are allied with Russia. They have been allied with Russia since the Soviet Union. They are facing a crisis, but they have strong leadership, and they are working together to get out of this crisis. The media wants us to panic. The media wants us to despair. The media wants us to think that the world is going to end tomorrow. So let us continue to demand a government of action that fights for working families, to break the domination of these international banking cartels and monopolies that are wreaking havoc around the world. And let us partner with the rising economy in the East, Russia, BRICS, Shanghai Cooperation, trade, not war, and not sanctions.